Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast. It is your host, Asif Ali, joined my co-host with the most, number 2-4, Cortez Branch. I'm rocking 2-3, aka Mr. Branch's favorite player from the Bulls back in the day. But anyways, it's been almost 3 months since we've been off the grid. We are back off the gridiron talking about the NFL draft, WrestleMania, and a bunch of stuff to unpack since we were last on. Obviously, when we were last on, it was a bit somber and solemn with the Niners Super Bowl loss. Obviously, for me, coming back from Vegas, taking the loser's walk of shame. But obviously now, I'm reflecting. I had enough time to reflect on that great season and everything Niners were able to do. And obviously now they're on the clock, literally on the clock right now for the fourth round pick.
They're literally on the clock.
Yes, and let's see. It looks like the Eagles just selected Kate Stover, tight end, out of looks like Ohio State. So. Anyways, let me just ask you first and foremost, what do you think about the draft and the offseason so far, Cortez?
I felt like this has probably been the most predictable draft that I've ever seen, aside from Atlanta. Aside from the Atlanta Falcons, I think this is the most predictable draft that I've ever seen on in the NFL, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was no secret that the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that to happen, and it's not because pre-draft I didn't want them to take Caleb Williams.
Right.
I wanted them to build around Justin.
Yeah.
Post-draft, I understand why you take Caleb. I understand the contract issues with Justin, and let's face the facts: Chicago Bears. Look, Justin's a star, and he's only going to get better if he's put in the right place people that believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
For all you Ohio State fans that watch, you guys know that. And I wish we could have kept him. He was a dynamite guy in Chicago, and we liked him. Hopefully Caleb can do the same and, care more about football than these antics. And I think that he deserves a fair shot to do that. The other quarterbacks were the same. The only ones, like I said, Atlanta and Denver surprised me with their picks. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to unpack what you just said about the Bears a little bit. I think kind of like you said, the understanding of why they did it, I think ultimately it just came down to the McCaskies not wanting to pay Justin.
That's what it comes down to.
And that's why Justin basically went to the Steelers, right? I think he's going to, backing up Russell Wilson. I mean, that's a really good situation, honestly, under Mike Tomlin for him to, potentially succeed.
Yeah, you got Mike Tomlin. You got Russell starting, so you don't have the pressure to start. You can learn whatever you need to learn, fix whatever you need to fix. It's Pittsburgh, so it's like it's a football town. It's not going to be super boring or anything like that. I think it's just really good for him. It's good for the guy, and if he gets a starting shot, if Russell gets injured or if Russell is ineffective, one of the two, I think that he'll be able to prove himself again in that situation. Especially because the Steelers' offensive line is always better than the Bears' offensive line is always.
Exactly.
Always.
It's like his name for the 49ers. Let's see who they pick.
That and the fans. Pittsburgh's going to rally behind this kid.
Oh, I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers have some of the best fans, if not the best, one of the best fan bases, if not the best fan base in the NFL. I mean, obviously the Niners faithful, we're pretty loyal. You saw, the turnout in the Super Bowl. I think it was like a 60-40 split from Niners fans to Chiefs fans. So obviously, Niner Empire is huge, right? We're up there, the faithful, as Randy Cross, 49ers Hall of Famer basically stated on the podcast when he was on, a few years ago. Not a few years ago, last year, a year ago, basically, January 2023. But essentially, kind of what, what you just said and kind of, what we just kind of, saw, with the Bear strategy, right? I think, like to your point, right? I think the offensive line and I just think the Steelers are in a really good position now with a starting quarterback, with an already good, if not great defense, and with weapons. All across the ball.
That's what it comes down to is weapons.
Yeah, and Patrick Queen going to them, I mean, that makes that. I mean, I saw Patrick Queen play against the Niners back on Christmas Day when they just demolished San Francisco. I mean, that defense just got a whole hell of a lot better, Patrick Queen. So it is a very favorable situation for Justin. It's going to be exciting to see what Mike Tomlin is able to do with him. Pretty much now I want to actually get into the draft itself because you mentioned offensive line and basically a lot of kind of churn around the Niner faithful. So obviously the Niners, and you actually mentioned something which I actually want to challenge because you mentioned the draft's pretty predictable, but I did not expect the 49ers to draft Ricky Pearsall with the 31st overall pick because I'd never heard of Ricky Pearsall because I haven't watched Florida State.
I don't count the Niners. I don't count the Niners in the draft anymore. The reason why I don't count the Niners in the draft anymore is because, as you guys are well aware of, there's this man who stalks around the Bay Area that goes by the name of Brock Purdy. And
Yeah.
when it comes to the Niners in the draft, no more. The Niners are going to do whatever they want to draft. So, yeah, they're unpredictable.
Yeah, and I really think that, I originally tweeted that, I thought it was a dumb move on Twitter, but then I kind of thought about, kind of pondered on it for a day, and I realized, you know what, watching the film and understanding what the weakness was and actually seeing how the Niners struggle in the Super Bowl, Ricky Pearsall brings that element of being able to beat man coverage, being able to, I guess, stride against press and be able to, beat those man schemes who basically, challenge the Niners wideouts during the Super Bowl, which Brock basically unpacked, Mr. Relevant
Yeah.
in the post game. Debo, I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if it's just the extra weight he basically puts on to play the wide back position. I don't know what it was, but essentially, that was just you saw Trent McDuffie and Algerius Sneed, who's now basically, on the Chiefs, right? Just clamp up, Debo and his wide receivers. And Brock had to throw it low. Debo was targeted, I want to say, I think 11 times. He only had maybe 3 catches of those 11. Brandon Ayuk had 6 targets. He had 3 catches as well. George Kittle only had 2 catches for, I think, 4 yards.
Yeah.
It was not a good show. I mean, Juwan Jennings is probably the best performer in that Super Bowl, like we talked about 2 months, almost 3 months ago now. And essentially, he basically was able to, come up big. And, what Juwan excels at is beating that man coverage. And basically, getting Ricky Pearsall, who I've seen different comps, to Julian Edelman, to many other types of, I guess, versatile slot receivers. That definitely
Yeah.
makes the Lions a very complete receiving core all around, because you have your outside guys with the Brandon Ayuk and maybe, I guess, a Debo. Then you have, obviously inside, with the Ricky Pearsall, So even though, he may not be the fastest, he does run a 4.41. So I want to say fastest with a grain of salt. He can definitely attack the inside of the field and basically do his damage there. Now, obviously, moving on to the second round, right? I want to look at the Niners second. Actually, we didn't have a second round pick. It was the third round. So let me go to the third round. The third round pick was a corner, right? I believe was it Bernard Green was his name. Let me get his actual name.
I think so, something
Yep.
like that.
Actually, it was a second, right? Second. It was second. Yep. I apologize. It was second round. Yep. Bernard Green. Yeah, Florida State has locked down almost every top 10 receiver in this year's draft. I believe he only has 1 interception throughout his entire 5-year career, but the reason why is because they haven't thrown it aside as much. And if anyone knows football, you know that if they're not throwing to your side like a Darrelle Revis, that means you're doing something right. You call that an island, right? So essentially, that
Yeah.
also has an element, to pair him with Mooney Ward, to pair him, with the Commodore Lenore, and obviously to pair him with an already great, Ronaldo Green, to pair him with an already, I think, a loaded secondary. I think Dave Lombardi posted on his Twitter that this may be the most loaded Niners secondary of the Kyle Shanahan era, with a Mooney Ward, with a
The
Commodore.
49ers are drafting 135 again, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So let's see, unless they trade back. So Bernardo Green at corner, and then obviously, now we're going to go to the third round pick, which basically Dominic Pui, Pui is that Pui? No, Pooney. I apologize, Pooney. Dominic Pooney, who came out of Kansas,
Pooey?
who is the second highest rated guard off the guard against pass protection in this second highest rated guard in pass protection in this draft. So that probably means Feliciano or Burford, probably most likely Burford. I think Feliciano maybe will kick him inside if Brendel, or maybe they'll let Pooney sit, for another kind of,
Right.
for a few weeks, and then basically let him develop to understand and learn Kyle's scheme. And then essentially, then he'll probably get his reps, here and there, and it adds he's a tremendous add, to basically the Niners, in my opinion, weakest link the entire season, right, last year, which was basically a 22nd or 25th ranked offensive line who allowed, I want to say, almost 20 sacks, if not more than that, on the right side. Colt McKivitz as right tackle, allowed 10 sacks alone in the regular season. So, I mean, there's a lot of huge upside with that pick, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
immediate
there is.
added value with that pick as well. Now let's go into the pick that just came in for the 49ers. Malik Mustafa, safety. So that's also another need because of Talanoa Hufanga. We don't know how he's going to look when he comes back from that ACL
Yeah.
Achilles tear.
Malik
So,
Mustafa.
yeah, exactly. So ultimately, this is I think Malik Mustafa was coming out West Virginia, Wake Forest. Yeah, I don't know too much about Malik. I'm sure he's a great player. I can't even say that because I haven't watched his film, but Yeah, essentially to your point, Cortez. Now the Eagles are on the clock, or the pick is in for the Detroit. The Eagles are on the clock, and now the Niners are going to pick at 35. So we're going to see basically, who the Niners pick up. I mean, I would love to see him take either another offensive lineman or, if not, a defensive line, I guess an edge rusher to pair with Bosa. So that way they can attack both ends. You do have a straight line kind of sack edge rusher with Leonard Floyd. Let's talk about the Niners free agent acquisitions. I've been posting shorts all through my YouTube, and I've been getting feedback and interaction. So thank you everyone who's been tuning into the YouTube shorts that I've been posting, since the Super Bowl up until this point. I really like what the Niners did in the offseason free agency market with getting a Leonard Floyd for, I guess, $10 million a year, for beginning a Yannick.
Leonard Floyd was good.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd's a great pickup. I mean, you know him from Chicago. I watched him in Chicago before he went to LA. The year that made the playoffs back in 2018. I mean, he was a great add, to an already great defense with Khalil Mack and those boys, Akeem Hicks, and obviously won a Super Bowl with the Rams and has averaged 9 sacks for the past 4 years. Every year averaging 9.5 sacks, almost 10 sacks a season for the past 4 years consecutively. His production is off the charts. On top of that, obviously, basically getting Malik Collins, right, to basically replace the Eric Armstead. I believe Malik is a great addition, to, that I guess, to clog up those interior lanes. You as a running back basically know how difficult it is to go up against the pass. Again, not necessarily. And Malik has shown his I guess his poise against getting after the quarterback and pass protection, not pass protection, but pass rush. But I'm looking forward to seeing how he does the run. And so I'm not going to get into all the Niners offseason picks. Obviously, you Rock Ya-Sin on the corner, on the secondary. You also got Isaac Yiadom. You got a bunch of guys in the free agency market. And anyways, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shapes out. And I mean, what are your initial takes? Not just from the Niners offseason, but offseason in general outside of the draft from NFL free agency.
I mean, if you look at the Niners are trying to plug in any gaps that they may have had.
Yep.
So them picking up another safety, them possibly picking up another like utility offensive guy, like it's only going to add to their firepower, and I think that that's going to be the important thing for them. I think that they're pretty solid in a lot of other positions and situations. So I think that that's what they're going to do. They got solid coaching. They got a solid quarterback. I wish people stopped saying that he's not. He doesn't have to be a superstar. He's a solid quarterback. Doesn't need to be a superstar. Like if he goes out and does superstar stuff, let him go out and do superstar stuff. But he doesn't need to be a superstar. Like he doesn't need to put the team on his back every week. Like he has a team for a reason. They built the team in San Francisco. They didn't build the team on 3 guys being superheroes. They built the team in San Francisco. So as long as they pick up where some guys fall off, I think that they'll be fine. Wake Forest was a good college, so a very good football college. I think he'll be fine. I think that they've been picking well and that they're going to be okay. I'm actually surprised from the looks of it. The Bears have drafted well too.
Oh yeah, the Bears actually, in my opinion, actually
the other 2 teams, like I said, I think I think the Bears had the best day 1 and probably best day 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like Niners day 1 was questionable at best because Ricky Pearsall was not the best available player, but Kyle never schemes for burners, and obviously the Chiefs moving up to get Xavier Worthy, who set the combine record for receivers.
I just don't understand why Buffalo let that happen.
Right, and in Buffalo obviously allowing that to happen, essentially what that meant was basically the Niners really see something in Ricky Pearsall, which we don't see, and obviously Kyle, the track record in the first round has not been great for the Niners front office and coaching staff, but I do want to say that, watching Ricky Pearsall's highlights, it looks very, very promising, and also watching his Senior Bowl highlights, and many guests of this show who actually compete in the Senior Bowl, they'll tell you the Senior Bowl, is basically where you can really showcase what you can and cannot do to the NFL scouts and teams. So, obviously Ricky Pearsall can definitely separate. He can definitely, basically come off the line with great bursts, and that's exactly what the Niners really needed. Someone who can get that separation, beat man coverage, and essentially, be that guy. And essentially, I think that's what they have now. So obviously, you look at the receiving core with a Deebo Samuel, with a Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, actually, no, let me reorder that. Right. Brandon Ayuk is probably the wide receiver 1. Deebo is kind of like I guess, kind of like and I want to say, obviously, and for lack of a better term, he's not an outlier, but he's basically an anomaly, right? Because of what he can and cannot. He's switching between the run, switching between,
You know what they used to call them?
What was that?
They used to call them wingbacks.
Yeah, wide backs. And then Juwan Jennings,
So
obviously. And then George Kittle.
I just don't know why they got rid of that.
Yeah, I know. And then obviously now you got this kid, Ricky Pearsall. So it's a really, like, they call it the Avengers of offense, because you also have Christian McCaffrey, who can line up, number 23, baby, who can line up.
Christian McCaffrey staying right where he's at.
Absolutely.
In San Francisco.
Exactly. But Christian McCaffrey, obviously, the good thing is that, he's so versatile. He fits so well in Kyle's scheme and kind of how he can play, just not just as running back, but coming and lining up, off the line, flexing out at Y, and being able to, do everything that, you need your best football player, arguably, to do, right? And so ultimately, with that said, this kid is definitely this kid, Ricky, is definitely drafted in a great situation. I really like the, potential immediate value add, so obviously a lot of fans are kind of torn on the pick, but I think it's a great pick. So I think
how do you feel about Detroit bringing in all this defense that they're drafting?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think, they're basically going all in, I was really upset that the Niners didn't sign Kevin Zeitler, who Detroit picked up, because he would have been an immediate value Pro Bowl, kind of an offensive lineman who the Lions picked up for cheap. But ultimately, I think the Lions are making the moves that they have to. And I think, they're going to definitely be a force in the NFC North. I mean, in my opinion.
The Bears drafted a punter.
Hmm?
The Bears drafted a punter at 122.
Oh, yeah, I saw. Well, hey, think about this. Niners drafted a kicker last year in the 3rd round. So, hey, it doesn't matter. Obviously teams know better than we do. I mean, do you know?
I mean, they kind of got everything they need now, except I would add I would just added some extra offensive line, but at the same time, if you don't have a punter, you don't have a punter. And maybe they don't, and maybe they only want Cairo Santos kicking kicks.
And one more thing I want to add, Keon Coleman, who is actually one of my favorite prospects, going to the Bills. I mean, he can be an immediate, kind of, game changer for that offense. Granted, he's able to, pick up the scheme and, adjust well. I mean, he has the body, he has the length, he has the speed. He's a phenomenal wide receiver, kind of a sleeper pick, in my opinion. And obviously A.D. Mitchell, who dropped to number 52, A.D. Mitchell going to the Colts, that's also another great, I'm not going to say great, but a really good player who I thought the Niners were going to pick up, but instead they went with Ricky. One of the question mark trades I was going to bring, not a question mark, but Niners decided to trade down with the Chiefs to basically let them draft Kingsley. Niners, who were basically positioned at 63 to get Kingsley, who could help bolster the offensive line. Then Niners, basically with the last pick of the 2nd round, basically drafted Green. I do think that, offensive line, now that they're able to get Pooney the next round, that was a phenomenal kind of, add for pass protection. Kingsley, I want to say, might be a little better overall, but again, I think that, it doesn't really matter, because they're able to get a really solid, a game-changing cornerback in Green. Pair that with the number 2nd best pass protector in the draft with the Pooney. So I'm gonna give the Niners, I mean, all days up to this point, I'm gonna give them like an A-, because I really think, outside of the the question mark, it's a quote unquote question mark, because we haven't seen Ricky Pearsall on the field yet. But outside of that pick, which has been kind of questioned, I think Niners have definitely made some great moves. So, okay, Niners just moved up to 29. Oh my God, Niners just traded up to 29, and the pick is in.
See what they're gonna do.
Yeah, sorry, 129. The Niners the pick is in right now. They traded their oh my God, Niners actually. They have their 129th pick, and they kept the 135th. So we're going to have 2 picks before this podcast is over from the 49ers and the end of this 4th round. This is phenomenal. I don't know what they gave up, but that's
interesting.
That's a smart move. I really like that idea. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy because if you have 11 picks or 10 picks, how many picks they had, you're not going to have all those 10 players make the roster. It makes sense to package those and move up. And this is kind of the big swing that David Lombardi keeps alluding to, who I've been following religiously on his YouTube channel this offseason about the 49ers coverage. And this is, wow, let's see who they pick. So let's talk about a few more teams, obviously. The Chiefs, obviously.
Tackle, cornerback.
Say again?
The pick's in.
Let's see who they get. Okay. So I was gonna say, obviously the Chiefs, were, I guess, another good team, I guess another great draft, from a team in terms of kind of getting, their burner wide receiver, who I really want the Niners to pick up. But at the end of the day, whatever. But we did get, but the thing is, I think Xavier Worthy, one of the question marks about him, the Chiefs pick, he struggles with catches. He struggles with holding onto the ball, and he has. I think I'm not gonna say he led the CFP right in drops, but the drops were something that definitely kind of hindered, in my opinion, his stock a little bit. I think obviously his size, the 5'11", 165, like he's smaller than me, so I mean that's definitely going to be an issue. I think at the next level, he's probably going to have to put on some weight. That's probably going to impact his speed a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to bust out, but I don't think that it may or may not be great. As an addition, I think obviously in the return game he can definitely be like a Dexter McCluster.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he can be like a Dexter McCluster type. And I think one more thing I want to ask you about was the kickoff rules, the adjustments and changes. The new kickoff rule, if you saw it, now they're going to basically kick it. Was it? I think at the 30 or whatever, or like they got the 40. And basically teams and it's just going to be like team and the key teams have to receive it so that way it doesn't go out of bounds. So the new kickoff rules actually work in favor for a yards after catch kind of machine like a Debo, because obviously Debo has been trying to find himself.
I watched UFL, so like I watched the UFL. Guys like Debo Samuel are going to eat with these kickoff rules.
Oh, exactly. Oh my God, it's going to be phenomenal, right? To see how it all shapes out.
Guys like Debo are going to eat. They're going to eat.
Right, they're gonna eat, and it solves a question mark because obviously Ray McCloud going to the Falcons, the Niners needed to fill that spot, and with the kickoff rule changes, that favors them so well. Not only did they sign Trent Taylor to come back to a team to be return punts, but you got Debo now for kickoff return. That might help free up that wide receiving space. So obviously, guys like Jennings can actually get more touches, and you can get him more involved instead of just being your third down money machine. So. I like the change. I like you said, me being a special teamer, I love seeing special teams, plays at the highest level.
That's what the rule change is about.
Yeah.
The rule change is about making special teams relevant in football again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be like, I think that the NFL, the option of kicking the ball needs to exist.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that if the NFL instituted the go for two and go for three,
mm-hmm.
I'd be completely fine if they could go for three instead of kicking for three sometimes.
The Niners drafted with the 129th pick overall.
Isaac
Gennardo, running back out of Louisville.
Garindo. So they picked up another running back.
Yeah, Garindo.
They must have saw something they really liked in him.
Yeah, because I really thought they should have gone offensive line or at least a defensive line, like I told you. I really thought they were going to go that direction because, again, the safety was huge. Or maybe even, a linebacker or a tight end too to pair with Kittle. I think that was kind of what I thought they were going to target because they are kind of loaded right now at the running back position. So this is kind of
5 running backs.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot. I mean, Jordan, they already have obviously number 2, 3, the NFL leading rusher. Then you have Jordan Mason, you got Elijah Mitchell. Now you have this kid, right? Isaac, Garendo. I mean, I'm not sure if that might have been a reach too. So I was hoping that they're going to go offensive line, but at least they got one. Hopefully they can get a few more. And obviously, not sure if I like this pick, but hey, in Kyle and Lynch we trust. One thing I wanted to bring up, my buddy, Salman, who was on the show with us a few months ago. He was talking about Jatavion Sanders, who who came out of Texas and went to the Panthers with the first pick in the 4th round. I really like that pick for the Panthers because me being a Longhorns fan and watching a lot of Texas Longhorns football, Jatavion Sanders is one of those players who can definitely be an instant impact kind of big body tight end at the next level. So, and obviously Panthers also got Xavier Legette, at the end of the 1st round. So the Panthers are definitely, tooling up for their young, first overall pick from last year's draft, Bryce Young, to hopefully, give him more weapons, more chances to, grow and mature this next season. I want to also kind of what you brought up about the Falcons drafting Michael Penix Jr. We talked about Michael Penix. You said last time that when we talked about it, you were not that high on him being a 5-year starter. And it's interesting to me because Kirk Cousins, obviously was not informed about that pick, prior to the draft. So I'm wondering, what is your take? I mean, is it that Kirk Cousins? If you give a guy like Kirk Cousins $180 million, I assume that you think he's going to be there for at least the foreseeable future. But making that
pick. I don't understand why you would give Kirk Cousins that much trade alert What's going on?
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles trade their pick to the Detroit Lions.
Oh wow. Detroit is stocking up, man. Yeah, I just saw that too. The Chiefs just drafted Jared Wiley, tight end, and now TCU. So, yeah, a lot of Texas college tight ends are going this round. Obviously, Cade Stover from the tight end Ohio State went to the Texans. Um, yeah, I'm trying to just see. Yeah, Eric All, a tight end out of Iowa, he went to the Bengals. Yeah, I was looking. I mean, I don't know if there's any players who I really love at the defensive line or the offensive line position. Landon Robinson went with the third overall pick. Not third overall pick, but the third pick in the fourth round, the 103rd pick overall. Justin, um, Igbe from Alabama went to the Chargers. See, that was a player who I thought would have been a great fit. But I think we need to also prioritize defensive end, edge rusher, not necessarily interior. Interior, I think we kind of shored up a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's see who the pick is in for the Lions. So we'll see who they draft. And yeah, then obviously the Chiefs go, the Jets, and the Niners. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, ultimately this draft, like you said, has been predictable. But then it's interesting to see the direction certain teams have went because, for example, the Niners they met with a lot of players like Rosengarten, a lot of players, pre-draft who had visits to the Niners, kind of like almost like college campus recruitment visits, and they didn't go
Yeah.
with any of those players. It's
None.
yeah, sorry.
They didn't go with any of those guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like they're giving out signals like, oh yeah, we're gonna get this guy, we're gonna get this guy, and it's they basically said no, we're gonna just stick with whoever we have on our draft board, and that's kind of the beauty of these war rooms and these mock drafts and everything. They can all get busted, just like March Madness brackets.
March Madness brackets love to get busted.
Yeah, so let's recap the first round. Caleb Williams to the Bears. Washington Commanders got Jaden Daniels. Patriots draft Drake May. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to the Cardinals. Joe Alt, the best offensive line in the draft, goes to the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a huge proponent of
Bills
building the
pick
offensive
Ray
line.
Davis.
Yo, okay, Gray Davis. Malik Neighbors go to the Giants. Oh, that was what. Yeah, Malik Neighbors, even though he may arguably be the second best receiver in the draft, he was locked up by Renardo Green of the San Francisco 49ers. So I wanted to let everyone know that Renardo Green has gone up. When I say toe to toe, you can go he put it on film. You can go look up the highlights against Malik Neighbors. Renardo Green definitely had a great showing against Malik. Like you said, Bo Nix going to the Broncos. I don't know. I don't know if I'm surprised by that. I think Bo Nix, the Broncos have really had trouble trying to solve the QB issue since Peyton Manning retired for the past almost, I guess you can say almost 10 years now. Because now Peyton Manning, they won the Super Bowl in 2015. Now we're entering the 2024 season. That's 9 years, almost a decade. So essentially, I think Bo Nix, if he is as good as advertised with the experience he has, kind of like a Brock Purdy, he can definitely be an instant value add, to the Broncos. Um, you know, Olu Fashanu going to the Jets, that was a pretty no brainer. Roma Dunze, yeah, like you said, great pickup for the Bears.
Great pickup.
Yeah, obviously Fuaga, Talisa Fuaga going to the Saints. I mean, let me just keep going down this list. Let's see, Verse, Troy Fautanu. Troy Fautanu. Yep, Troy Fautanu. Chop Robinson going to the Dolphins. Quinion Mitchell going to the Eagles. Brian Thomas Jr. going to the Jags. Karen Arnold going to the Lions. Jordan Morgan going to the Packers. Graham Barton going to the Bucks. Darius Robinson going to the Cardinals. Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs. Tyler Guyton going to the Cowboys. Nate Wiggins going to the Ravens. Ricky Pearsall going to the Niners. And then Xavier Oget going to the Panthers. So that recaps the first round. Let's go run through the second round real quick. Get this up. Keon Coleman going to the Bills. Lab McConkey going to the Chargers. And then let me just scroll down this. I'm not going to go through all these picks. Cooper DeJean going to the Eagles. Kool-Aid McKinstry going to the Saints. I thought both those picks, Kool-Aid and Cooper, could have been taken by the Niners. That would have been
I thought the Niners were going to take Kool-Aid.
Absolutely. Kool-Aid would have been an instant, ad. But hey, what do we know? And then we keep going down the list. A.D. Mitchell going to the Colts. Any other big names on this? Roger Rosengarten going to the Ravens. Kingsley Suamatea, going to the Chiefs. The Niners actually traded with the Chiefs to give them Kingsley. I don't know why. and then Bernardo Green going to the Niners. So, anyways, I'm not sure why they keep drafting running backs though in the third or the fourth round. I really think they should have used that on tight end or linebacker or an offensive lineman, but that's fine. So the pick is in for the Lions. We'll see
They
where they
might be
draft.
looking to pick up a guy like in free agency.
Well, they've already signed most of the free agents. I think that's kind of where they are. I think they're pretty much pat with their free agents kind of signing. They have some offensive linemen, like I think one who really wasn't that good. I think Brandon something, whatever. So I mean, they did get a lot of depth pieces. I think Pooney, if he can pick up the scheme, will be great. Maybe if we get another one. I mean, Pooney, what I've read is that he's very versatile, so he can switch between center, guard, and tackle. Everyone criticized McKivitz for the Super Bowl, but I really think that was on Burford for not picking up his assignment. And McKivitz was making sure that he was looking both ways. Maybe McKivitz can improve. I'm probably in the minority, but when I say that, but I wouldn't mind if Niners went in a different direction to get a different offensive lineman. But yeah, let's see what happens with this draft and these picks. So we're going to come
I'm
back to
always going to say draft offensive lineman. People might get mad at me for it, but I'm always going to say draft offensive lineman. Always.
Yeah, I mean, your running back success, your offense success, your quarterback success comes from the offensive line. Brock actually masked a lot of those issues from the offensive line last year. Kind of to your earlier point about Brock being a star or not. I'm not really sure if that really matters to be a star. I saw him put it on film where he basically had to adjust with a lack of pass protection. So, I mean, if you want Brock and this team to win a Super Bowl, I do think you have to build the offensive line a little bit. Let's actually switch gears a bit. We'll come back to the Niners in a bit of the draft. Let's talk about WWE. Last time we were here, Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble for a second time. And essentially, you and I were kind of going back and forth as to whether or not what direction WWE would go. They obviously brought back The Rock last time we were on. And then that just kind of built up the Bloodline storyline to a new height that we have never seen before. I mean, in terms of intensity, popularity, and just reinvigorated the interest in pro wrestling, especially, especially with the change in eras with basically Triple H now.
Well, I mean, it had adverse effects.
Really?
Yeah, the boost in professional wrestling helped everybody except one company.
Which one?
AEW has been floundering ever since the boost, man. Like AEW can't match any of their numbers from the years past. Their show is increasingly more difficult to watch. And then you have this is kind of funny. You have Tony Khan, the chairman and principal owner of AEW, who also owns the Jaguars with his father, at the NFL draft with a neck brace on in full kayfabe.
I was going to ask you a question because you remember last year when we had Justin Credible on back in August. He basically said Tony has way too much responsibility on his shoulders because he has to write Dynamite. He has to write. I mean, I don't know all the AEW shows.
He writes all the shows,
and it's a lot to put on one guy. And obviously with the CM Punk kind of the footage.
He's not a veteran in the game.
And the CM Punk footage being released with the backstage altercation with Jungle Boy, I mean, that did them no favors. It really just kind of, built up the legend that is CM Punk.
The Jungle Boy thing. So you don't watch AEW, and I'm sure everybody knows that by now.
Yeah.
But Jungle Boy and the Young Bucks, who are not going by the Young Bucks, they're going by Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. Is their heel personas.
Mm-hmm.
There's not Matt and Nick, they're Matthew and Nicholas. So, they gave a Meltzer driver, which is basically just a spike tombstone, to Tony Khan the other day. And Tony Khan, literally, that was Wednesday night. During night one of the draft, Tony Khan sitting at the draft table for the for the the Jaguars. And he's sitting there with the neck brace on, selling his Meltzer driver that the Young Bucks and Jack Perry gave him.
That's so interesting.
I'm like, this is funny because it's like everybody's watching to see if Tony's gonna do this because he knows that his company is failing right now, and he is trying his best. And this is the first time that he's like gotten super involved in a storyline on screen. I think this is the first time he's gotten super involved in the storyline on screen.
Yeah, so, I mean, And what was the quote about the CM Punk Jungle Boy Jack Perry altercation? I feared for my life. Something
He
something.
said, "I feared for my life," and then when he plays the footage, because he in order to combat CM Punk's interview that he did on another podcast,
Yeah.
he tried to play the CCTV footage without any audio, and basically cut out some parts, but he played the footage and the Young Bucks couldn't commentate over it because of all the NDAs. So basically you got the footage and then you had to like process it without any real commentary about it. Like they couldn't tell you what happened. You just had to watch what happened. And to make it look like a long story short, 49ers are back on the clock again.
Yep.
That guy's hilarious. Um, to look at that dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, I mean,
to make it a long story short with those guys, they they just need to worry about putting on better products and managing their giant, bloated, expensive roster. He's hemorrhaging cash doing shows in Daly's place. Like if they just did a show in the Indiana Coliseum. Yes, the Indiana Coliseum, that 100-year-old building in Indiana that holds about maybe 4,000 people. They didn't even sell out. It was 2,500 people maybe in there. Like, dude, at this point, you're trying to go to war with someone that sells out 16,000 seats every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Thursday, and every Friday. WWE sells out, especially right now, and AEW is not, because if you're going to pay money to see a show, are you going to spend $150 to see an AEW show, or are you going to spend $48 to go to a WWE live event or a SmackDown in your town?
yeah. Well, actually, I went to SmackDown when they came to Sacramento back in September. It was roughly, I mean, if you want good seats, it's going to be at least 700 total for
Yeah,
two people.
yeah, good seats are going to be expensive.
Yeah, but ultimately, yeah, you're right. I mean, you can get cheaper ones, and I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. But yeah, it was so much fun, man. And mind you, there was no Rock, there was no Cody, there was no Roman. It was just a great fun show. They had John Cena there, they had Seth Rollins there when Seth was still the world champ. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but I mean, I agree with you. I think, kind of AEW didn't do themselves any favors by rolling the CCTV footage when the Young Bucks played that, to kind of showcase, kind of bury CM Punk. It really just kind of showed that CM Punk was in the right. And obviously, like you said, like,
Yeah,
Tony
he was
Khan,
nowhere near Tony Khan.
yeah. And Tony Khan, I mean, he wasn't even exactly, he was in the back, kind of just, a screen fell, he lifts it up. It's like nothing. Like, I mean, you just see his hand. You don't even see him. Like, he's behind the monitors. And
You're
I mean,
scared for your life.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know, man. I
First
just
of all,
really,
everybody knows this. If you work in a physical environment, like how many times have like you seen players go at it? Same team,
yeah. I mean, Vince is obviously
players
embroiled.
go at it all the time.
Vince is obviously embroiled, kind of in this horrific lawsuit. Who Vince, Vince is who he is, and that's not my business to speak on that. It's a no, that's a really nasty kind of situation. That I'm happy that WWE was able to transition the ownership cleanly, to Triple H, Paul Levesque. You see kind of the difference. Obviously, like you said, but Vince, when he was, kind of at the peak of his prime, during, the Attitude Era, the New Generation Era, he would take
Mm-hmm.
shot. He took I think, a right cross the Undertaker said from Bret Hart after the Montreal Screwjob. He basically said, "You have one free shot and take it." Like Vince but you never saw Vince, try to bury any of his talent under the bus. And, I think that's kind of the difference. Like, you really have to love and breathe. And I'm not saying Tony's an outsider, because at this point, it's been 5 years now. He's kind of really ingratiated himself in the world of pro wrestling. He did found AEW, and he has bankrolled it,
Right.
like you said. But like you said, it's a very top heavy roster. It really gives me WCW vibes. I mean, You air on TNT, you basically have, like you said, dwindling, support. WCW though, at least, still was able to sell out. Like you said, AW, the attendance figures are just not there. It's almost like I want to say like a TNA kind of vibe, more realistic comparison speaking. But I think, like you said, AEW is basically losing. But back to kind of the main what my original point was about The Rock and everything with the Bloodline, Cody, kind of what it did for WWE. It brought everyone back into pro wrestling. Like Cody now, and I think one more thing back to the eras, Triple H, you saw the difference now. It's basically back to TV 14. I mean, they're basically using foul language. It's not censored. You saw The Rock beat up Cody Rhodes, you saw a bunch of blood all over the place. I really think that WWE is now basically going back from the G rating back to TV 14, which is what you and I grew up with during our youth. So I think that is going to really be the difference maker. I think Cody Rhodes is kind of, broken out of that shell of just kind of being like good Captain America, and now actually really being, a true champion to kind of be the anti-hero.
Right.
WrestleMania, that's how WrestleMania, because that happened a month ago, but I mean, I still want to talk about it because, man, what a fucking show, dude. I mean, what was your favorite kind of standout from the WrestleMania show?
I'm gonna be that guy. The main event, the main event was executed perfectly, and I don't care what anybody says. If you watch this, if you've been watching, then you realize that there's only one way for the main event to play out and actually make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for like actual wrestling fans, not fans of just one person or one character. Actual wrestling fans. I'm just keeping it 100. Actual wrestling fans will tell you this is the way that this had to play out. Cody had to win. Seth had to go away. The Rock had to go away. Roman's been going nonstop. I mean, let's face the facts here. People talk about his light schedule, but he's literally fighting cancer. Like he's been fighting cancer for years. He needs time to break. Like he needs those times. And I think that him being away from television for a little bit is good. It'll let the rest of the bloodline grow. It'll let the story play out that's coming. And if we end up getting to the Civil War that we want to have, because everybody wants to see it, then it'll be good because you'll have everyone there, which is what we wanted from the beginning. We're tired of them being separated. I think Triple H is tired of families being separated. I think Triple H wants to bring the wrestling families back into wrestling. For too many years, Vince stopped. You remember we first started watching when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was families everywhere. You had the Harts. You had we thought the Rockers were brothers. There's lots of the Steiner brothers. Like there's a lot. There's a lot. There were all of the Rhodes, the Flairs. Like there's legacies that were going on. All the Ordens. Even the Hogans for a little bit. You remember that? All the different Hogans that were wrestling. There was Hulk, his brother, his daughter, and I think even his son got involved for a little bit.
He did.
It's better for wrestling if families stay together. You have all these champions that are separated. It'd probably be nice to see Buddy Matthews come back. The problem with that is, and he's probably gonna hate hearing me say this, but like you got to develop that character, man. Like, yeah, you're foreign and you're a badass and you got skills. You got to build on that, man. You need a little bit. You need a little bit more personality to go with that edge.
Yeah,
You
I
get
mean,
personality to go with that edge, you'll be fine.
I hate to say it, but like, because I love Samoa Joe, but like AEW is where basically people go when their careers are done. It's basically a graveyard of like good wrestlers. So
Which is
I don't
crazy
know.
because they had so much potential. They had Jericho when he was lightning hot. They
Mm-hmm.
had Jericho, they had Cody Rhodes, they had the Young Bucks, they had Kenny Omega. You signed Penta and his brother Octagon. No, not Penta and not Penta and Ray Phoenix. Sorry, Octagon's the midget. Um, they had everybody. They had great talent to begin with. They messed up. You brought in Sting, Matt Hardy. Like, Matt Hardy came in during the pandemic. Which is, we'll say what we have to say about that. I feel like AEW won the beginning of the pandemic, and WWE won the end.
Yeah, I think AEW definitely won the beginning, but I really enjoyed watching WWE during the pandemic. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I was watching it on Peacock. I was just binging all the
Thunderdome was fun.
I was binging all the premium live events because it was so intriguing to me to see how they perform without a live audience. I mean,
Dude, the Thunderdome
and
was fun. Like you almost forgot that the audience wasn't there.
yeah, because
Like
you had the Thunder. Right, go ahead.
the Thunderdome, they still had pyro. They had an elaborate set that wasn't too big.
Yeah,
I like the live set. Everybody that's ever been to a live WWE show, you realize that the live set, the stage is so massive.
yeah,
You realize how massive the stage is. They were able to recreate that same feeling of a massive stage in the Thunderdome without having to have a massive stage in the Thunderdome. And they were able to create an intimate environment that wrestling could thrive in, and no other company did that.
100%. I mean, I really think that, and a good thing for Drew. I mean, back to WrestleMania because we didn't talk about all the matches, but I agree that the main event stole the show. Cody basically winning that Imagine Dragons promo. I still play that on repeat all the time I'm driving. The Eyes Closed song is just a banger. Triple H bringing back kind of like the rock music for like the post show kind of
Right.
montage. It's really cool. Let's talk about kind of what we just said. I think the Drew McIntyre not having his WrestleMania moment or having his WrestleMania moment during the pandemic against Brock Lesnar, who's also involved with that lawsuit. Again, I'm not going to speak on that because we're just going to mention him for the reference of Drew. And essentially, basically now, Seth basically giving Drew's moment. And then obviously Drew being willing to, share the spotlight with the Damon Priest for Priest to finally get his moment. I really think that it was a home run, for the angle reasons of Drew basically beating Seth. You heard the pop, it was massive. Then basically going to CM Punk, kind of doing that work, saying that, hey, I can end your career. CM Punk taking off the cast, beating him with it, and then taking it off. And then, Damian Priest, Senor Money in the Bank, who's now Senor, World Heavyweight Champion, basically
Yeah.
cashing in at the perfect time. I mean, not saying, it's one of the greatest cashes of all time besides Seth's cash in, almost 10 years ago at 31.
Oh shit.
What?
Cardinals got Desmond Ritter too.
Carson's got who? Let me look it up. Oh, Niners drafted another wide receiver. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
He's
they
kind of
did.
undersized. Like Xavier Thomas. Wow. I wish we got him. I'm not sure what the Niners are doing. They drafted a running back and a wide receiver. Could have drafted an edge. They could have drafted another lineman. They could have drafted actually another linebacker. That's what I was looking for because Dre's coming back off that Achilles tear from the Super Bowl. Brutal, devastating
Right.
injury. So we'll see how he looks when he comes back. But anyways, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I think what's the Niners' next pick? I don't think they even have a pick this round, right?
Are they done with this round?
Well, this round fourth round's finished. Now we're on the fifth round. Yeah, I don't think the Niners have a fifth round pick because they moved because they traded with the Chiefs. So round 5, let's go to round 6. Niners have a 6th round pick. Yep. So the next pick is going to be 215. Ugh, bottom of 6. Yeah, we're not going to be on it that long.
No.
And then round 7. Let me see if they have any more picks. Yeah, I think the Niners will have 2 more picks, so it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, so the Niners basically drafted a wide receiver, a corner, lockdown, the second best pass protecting offensive lineman, but then question marks, the running back, and another wide receiver when you really need to fill your needs of linebacker, need a tight end, need to fill the need of edge rusher, opposite Bosa. Oh God, I don't know if I can give it an A. I mean, it's kind of like a B maybe.
I mean, I want to believe in that they're trying to do something, but like I said, we know what they need.
Yeah, we know what they need. I mean, it was glaring. I watched it firsthand in the Super Bowl. I'm going to keep reminding everyone on this podcast that you tune in here. I'm going to keep reminding you every single time I hop on my boy that I went to the fucking Super Bowl. That was my,
Yeah.
my magnum opus of my sports fan career. So I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to everyone. I might get flack for this, but I actually love Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, I love good football. So I don't know. I love watching him execute the play designs from Andy Reid. I really want Niners to win, but when you get beat twice, you just got to admit that that team's better. So Obviously they're coming Levi's this year, but I'm not sure if the Niners made the necessary moves. I think the Chiefs picking up some of those players, the offensive line, wide receiver, those are types of things that I hope the Niners were going to do, but it's okay. I mean, I think hopefully the Niners can figure something out. Anyways,
I
that's
think
long.
they will. I think they will. I just really hope that both the two franchises that I'm most worried about right now are the 49ers of Chicago, mostly because the 49ers, that wide receiver, like, yeah, Jacob Cowing. But yeah, that uh, the Niners and the Bears both, this is do or die. Whether people don't realize it or not, this is do or die. Because if the Bears don't do something this year, that head coach is getting fired.
Yep.
And you start that cycle of head coaches getting fired with players they drafted, bringing in new head coaches that don't really like the quarterback. And every time that happens, the quarterback is set up to fail. And it's happened in Chicago like 4 times in the last decade.
It
You know,
has.
and so it's kind of hard for us. In the 49ers case, okay, you made it to the Super Bowl, you made it to the NFC Championship. You really don't have anywhere else to go except winning it.
Exactly.
And if you do not make it back there in the next 2 years, they're going to blow that team up.
Especially because Brock after this is last year's of Brock's rookie deal. They're gonna pay him next year, and that's a $50 million extension. And what that means
Yeah.
is as early as 2025, that's Debo's last year's contract. They could basically cut him and take a $15 million dead cap hit and spread it out over 2 years. They can decide what they're going to do with Jennings. I mean, I love Jennings, but I mean, if he wants like a max money extension, which he can command at any other team except the 49ers, are basically in cap hell, he's probably going to walk, right? We'll have to see if Kittle, McCaffrey, and Ayuk, if they're all willing to come back for cheap. Yeah, I mean, Ayuk will get his money, but I think Kittle and McCaffrey might have to restructure, which I think they'll have no problem doing because those are team guys. Ultimately, the team will look very different. You don't know what Trent's going to look like. You don't know what the defensive line's going to look like. So to your point, yes, this is basically do or die. Niners have this year, and I want to say maybe next year they have to win in one of these 2 years. So ultimately, let's see. Maybe these moves are the right ones. We'll see. It just here's the problem though. If the Chiefs somehow make it back again, I don't see anyone beating them. I really don't. I mean, honestly, if the Chiefs make it back to Super Bowl again, who's really going to stop Patrick Mahomes and that team? A lot of people are just banking on the Chiefs not making it. It makes sense to kind of go with the field. But yeah. Anyways, with that said, I think that pretty much concludes our draft recap for now. I think Niners basically I'm going to give them a B minus ish, for the draft. I mean, now you can even go C plus because they didn't really fill up all the needs that were kind of outstanding. But I want to say back to WWE and wrestling, Cody Rhodes is champion. A lot of mixed opinions right now about how he's kind of performing. I personally think he's doing okay. I know Nick Khan sold all the shares of TKO, but I really think Cody has we'll see when the training wheels come off. I love what they did in SmackDown yesterday with the Carmelo match. I don't know why they tried to double springboard. You say that again?
I didn't get to see it yet. I'm gonna watch SmackDown when I get off with you.
Oh man, yeah. See, when you get off, go ahead and watch that.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch the whole SmackDown this afternoon.
Can I spoil the spot for you, or do you have to wait?
Yeah, go for it. You can spoil it.
The
if you
one
know something well on the internet.
Absolutely. No, the Twitterverse and everything, right? The Codyverse. I mean, the one spot that Cody and Melo, they probably practice this all the time, but one spot that they tried to hit was a double springboard Cody cutter, where Melo gets in the air, Cody gets in the air, and then I guess it was just the timing was just a little bit off. A lot of people saying Cody lacks athleticism. It's his age. I don't know. I mean, I just think the timing was off, right? And I mean, when you try to attempt a maneuver like that high risk, because the Cody cutter requires your opponent basically catching you. And Cody basically took when he landed, he basically took a hard kind of, I want to say a hard bump with his left shoulder, his arm. He was able to lift the belt up after the match, but it was just really interesting to see all that because I'm like, whoa, like holy crap, they really went for it.
Some risks.
Yeah, that is a risk, bro. Like, I mean, that is something. I mean, no disrespect to Roman. Obviously, he's obviously, in remission and he's taking chemotherapy pills. He's on his vacation. He earned it. He's been a phenomenal champion. Not a phenomenal champion. Well, a phenomenal star as champion, not necessarily as a champion because he wasn't really a fighting champion. I think Cody basically, has proven like, wow, this is a guy who's going to go in each and every night to just put his body out there. And obviously now he's exclusive to SmackDown. it's great for that brand, because now they can kind of use Cody to kind of build up that brand. And now obviously, I want to say the bump he took when he kind of was pressing and holding it. I think it was a work because they're going to use that to build up the match next weekend against AJ at Backlash, and we'll probably hop on here next weekend after Backlash. But anyways, I really think that WWE is in a really good spot. I love Cody. I mean, I'm obviously biased. I'm just a Cody fan. I have not seen Cody perform in person yet. I have seen the Usos. I have seen Solo. I have seen Seth. I have seen Cena. I have seen Priest. I have seen Dom. I've seen all the main players. And obviously, let's talk about Sammy. Sammy ending Gunther's reign. That was phenomenal because the IC champion, the IC championship, being at a position where it is now, Sammy getting that win over Gunther really kind of solidified him not just as a mid-carder, but as a true representative IC champion with some great names holding that belt.
Then his title defense in Montreal was fantastic. That was how you do it.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: what do you think about Chad Gable and the and the heel turn?
I would like Chad Gable's heel turn a lot more if Kurt Angle managed him.
Oh my God! Don't get me too excited.
I just would like it a whole lot more if Kurt Angle managed him. Like, The Rock has proven that characters who were, to be honest, better heels go back to being heels and stop being baby faces just because they're legends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the first person to do this was Shawn Michaels in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
After he retired, the first time he didn't stop his heel antics just because he retired,
going. Yeah.
He kept it going. Like, he didn't stop his heel antics just because of that at all. And I enjoyed that, watching that. I think it's the same thing that needs to happen here with our man's. You know what I mean? It's the same thing that needs to happen with him. He needs to embrace, his heel Kurt. Heel Kurt was awesome because heel Kurt was funny.
Fucking hilarious. Are you kidding me?
He was a heel when he was going against Shawn Michaels. He was doing the sexy Kurt stuff.
Oh my God, bro. Don't even.
Yeah, he was a heel for that. Nobody realized it because of how good it was, but he was a heel.
I'm just so sexy, Kurt. Sexy, Kurt.
He sang the whole song. I make your ankle hurt.
Oh my God.
And I feel like if Kurt Angle could get Chad Gable to just bump up one more notch, Chad Gable would become the most like Kurt Angle like character, and we kind of need a Kurt Angle like character with guys like if you got a guy like LA Knight, you need a Kurt Angle like character.
Exactly.
Because Kurt Angle was basically the antithesis of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Exactly. Yep.
The Stone Cold Steve Austin is beer drinking, doing whatever he want, SOB. Kurt Angle is a by the book US American. And the funny thing about it is Kurt's the heel here and Steve Austin is the babyface.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense because Steve Austin does heel stuff and gets cheered, and Kurt Angle does babyface stuff and gets booed. And so it's funny because that's how it works. And I think that Chad Gable's character works better as that type of heel, because let's face it, you're a copy paste of what Kurt what it was. You know what I mean? And it's not your fault. It's what you do.
Yeah, Kurt Angle is my favorite wrestler. Him, Ken Shamrock, probably neck and neck, my two top favorite wrestlers of all time. Obviously I met both of them. They've been guests of the show.
That's a good pun, neck and neck. Yeah.
Neck and neck. I love it. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, man, I love Chad Gable's. I love everything about him. He needs to just take that next step. I think this is it, bro. I think, like you said, we need that Kurt Angle. I agree with you. We totally do. We need that kind of pure athlete who's just like, I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, and I can be hilarious. I can also be in your face, and I'm a phenomenal athlete. So you better respect my ability. Like The Rock and Stone Cold on Kurt Angle's Legends documentary said, like, hey, like, yeah, like this guy's a funny kind of, cat. He can goof around, he can be corny at times, but hey, I'm a bad motherfucker too. Quoting Dwayne Johnson, right? And like you said with Stone Cold, and the antithesis. And it's funny you mentioned. I wrote a paper in undergrad about this exact topic about kind of the antithesis of kind of what a true hero is and the anti-hero
Yeah,
and the and the materialization of all that, for our fans receiving it, for all that. Stone Cold basically redefined the entire industry because he basically changed, what the good American guy is. It's not a good guy. It's a bad guy who is basically a good guy, because the fact that you all get behind it because, we all hate our boss. I can't say it out loud because of corporate rules. We all hate, the challenges we face every day financially, business wise, all that stuff. But we can't say that out loud because, society only accepts you when you succeed. So when you see that out there, on the big screen, everyone can relate to it, and
yeah,
Kurt Angle basically the antithesis of that being the perfect role model, perfect athlete, scholarship athlete, all that stuff. Can you relate to that? No. So he can come out there and say, I'm better than you, all you fucking losers, because I'm Kurt Angle, I'm an Olympic gold medalist with a broken freaking neck, I won my gold medal. And it makes you want to boo, but then you can also laugh. He can be funny and he can relate to you. That's what makes it so great. Yeah, man, it's very powerful. The dynamics, the emotions, and everything with characters. And
I feel like Chad started leaning into a lot of that, but he was a little bit over the top with it.
Exactly, I think the
I
Alpha
think he was a
Academy.
little bit too over the top. Like it worked, but it was too over the top.
Right, and I don't know if that's so much if it's Chad's fault or if he's just trying to, who was
I think
coaching him
he's
back then?
overselling.
Yeah,
Because like if you remember when he was when Vince was like head of creative, Vince brought out all that Shorty G crap and like that talk about making beef stew out of cow pies. He made beef stew out of that Shorty G thing because that was definitely a career ender. You know,
absolutely.
I've seen some career ending gimmicks. Festus, Eugene. And what's funny is Luke Gallows made Festus something.
He took it, he made it something, and then he ended up evolving. I mean, shit.
I mean, if you want to be honest, the most the most dead end character that ever existed was the Undertaker, and you see what happened there. That was not supposed to be a long term character. Neither was Kane. Neither one of them were designed to be long term characters. They were just
Well,
trying to find two guys that could work things to do.
but what about Stardust?
Stardust wasn't supposed to be long term either.
That's my point. So I mean,
Yeah,
pre
like
dead end.
yeah, like Stardust was one of those characters where it was like Stardust worked when it was believable when you brought Goldust in. It wasn't believable when you started doing the Cosmic Wasteland shit.
Yeah, 2019 was a horrible year of pro wrestling. I mean, Shorty
I
G,
mean,
all
they
that stuff.
ruined the Ascension. You know, they buried the Ascension. Like Vince did that. Like if you wanted them to be good, everybody wanted the Ascension to be good, especially classic wrestling fans. But Vince ruined them on purpose. Like you can't send out legends that literally roast them every single week. You can't do that. Oh, just because you wear shoulder pads doesn't make you a road warrior.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's no, I mean you're right. I mean you're hitting all the points. No, I'm just, I think Vince was just so out of touch. Like, I mean, you kind of read like some of the scripts that leaked, to the announce table. I mean, it was like, don't use the word the belt. We have championships. Don't use like actual wrestling terms. It's professional wrestling because I think he was trying to really ingratiate wrestling and sell it as a sports entertainment with the ESPN deal.
Yeah,
That
he
it
wanted
was,
no more wrestling talk. It was all sports entertainment.
and I just really felt like, yeah, he's so out. And everyone just said it seems like Vince is out of touch with the fans, and
They
it just
they were no
doesn't.
longer called wrestlers; they were called superstars.
I mean, and the best example was now, the former, fourth longest reigning champion in company history, Roman Reigns, the big dog, all that stuff. He was, and it's not on Roman, in my opinion. I think it was just on Vince, just over pushing him and putting him in a position that wasn't his natural self. Like, I mean, you hear about The Rock talk about it, when he came out as Rocky Maivia, then like the fans chant, die, Rocky, die. He joins the nation and, the rest is history. Like, Roman basically had to evolve from that, but that was in spite of creative. Like, creative did not let the fans basically receive Roman naturally. I mean, and that's why the big dog kind of, I mean, you could say it was overhated, but it was just like, it wasn't until Roman basically, was able to come back as a heel, really grow into his own with Paul Heyman to really kind of get to that next level. And I want to say, I mean, Vince did get credit for. Here, let me ask you this: who gets credit for the Bloodline, the greatest storyline in the last 20 years ending? Is it Vince or is it Triple H, or is it Sherry?
I'm gonna give it to Triple H.
Mhm.
I think Vince was the catalyst for believing in Roman and seeing a star. Like you can't say that couldn't see stars. Doesn't mean that he missed all of them. It just means that Vince did see a star when he saw a star.
Right.
Like he knew when he saw a star. I'm gonna piss off everybody right now, but I'm gonna have to fucking say it. If this was 1996, then with the money, the Sean Brett story would have been beautiful. But in 1996, they didn't have this kind of money.
No. No.
They didn't have this kind of money. This kind of money is something else. Like they got Saudi money.
Sal,
I
yep,
think
era
you
money.
I think you know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think you know a little bit about what that does. You know what I mean? And I tell people all the time, I'm like, everybody's like, they're so rich. I said, you have to understand, a lot of these countries are rich. I said the Arabians, they build their country. There's a very big difference between just being rich and also building your country. I said, so when they go there and they have a good time, like when they go to Jeddah or or to do Crown Jewel or any of those events, it's like you see how much money they're spending on the events, and you know that this is funded by that government and
Yeah.
not the WWE. They're like, hey, make it bigger, and WWE is like, well, that's going to cost this much. They're like, we didn't say anything about price. We said make it bigger. And they're able to put on amazing shows. So the Saudi shows are some of the best shows. People don't believe me because like they say, oh, they're just house shows. It doesn't matter. They're great shows because of the money. And
Production
so
value. Yeah, good.
yeah, like one of the reasons AEW stinks is production value is still not there. One of
Exactly.
the I feel like All In was a better produced show than some of the Dynamite episodes that they have. You know, one of the reasons why TNA is just not ever going to be what everybody wants it to be is because they've never had the same production value as WWE.
But TNA did have a good run in the mid to late 2000s. We have
That's
to give
because
it
the
that.
wrestling was good. The
Yeah.
wrestling was good, and the Aces and Eights storyline was wholly captivating.
Yes, it was.
It was wholly captivating. That was such a great story.
Yeah.
I feel like that AEW could have done more of the Dark Order storyline, had Uber not passed, but at the same time, as with that going on, like they didn't advance that storyline. It like they spent too many weeks on his passing. And I think they tried to replicate the Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
They tried to replicate the Eddie Guerrero passing
Yep,
and and
exactly.
and and how that made new stars, but that only happens once in a lifetime.
And
Uh,
and Eddie Guerrero's storyline wasn't really it built a new star in Ray, but Ray was kind of already a bidding main eventer at
Ray
that
was
point.
already a Ray was already a star. He'd already had main event feuds with Eddie.
Exactly, and that was kind of so when Eddie's passed, it just kind of catapulted. It just justified. Boom, let's put the belt
Well,
on him.
if you look, we had a bunch of guys pass at the same around the same time.
Hmm.
Within a 5-6 year span, we had a bunch of guys go. A bunch of guys retire. A bunch of guys like literally age out. And Ray was already on the cusp of being there. So let's
Yeah,
just say that Ray was able to take the shine of 5 guys all at the same time. And so you no longer have Eddie versus Big Show. You no longer have Benoit versus Kane. Now it's always Ray fighting all of them. And so the focus gets put on him. You can't replicate that in AEW because your roster's your roster's too big. Two, he wasn't a main event superstar yet. He was right there as the TNT champion, but he wasn't the main event superstar yet. And there was a lot of life in that story that just got derailed after he passed, especially because they did not replace the leader of that group. And they kind of turned into like a bunch of like gym bros after that. Like they lost their whole edge.
Yeah.
Like the Dark Order lost its whole edge after he died. They were overexposed. They should have they either scrapped the group for a little bit, let everybody go their separate ways, and develop their characters. But trying to keep the group together, bringing his son there every single week, and then it happened during the pandemic, so it was week in and week out, week in and week out. Nobody has anything to do. You know, there's nobody in this crowd. It's just them crying on stage
Right.
every week.
Exactly.
And like I've man, it just cut. You remember, bro? We've been talking about this for years. I have just watched like AEW just, for lack of better words, suck week after week after week for over a year, and ever since, like, it hasn't been good since 2022. They fumbled Sting's retirement. They fumbled bringing in Ric Flair. Like they're fumbling Hook. They fumble Edge. You fumble Mercedes Monet. You literally fumble Jade Cargill. I just don't know how much more fumbling that I can take. You fumble Kenny Omega. How do you fumble Kenny Omega?
And CM Punk.
And like, you literally had 5 of the 8 best wrestlers in the world in your company.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yep.
talking about the very best wrestlers in the world.
Yep.
Will Ospreay, Daniel Bryan, Edge, Mercedes Monet, what's his name? That's over there right now. John Moxley, Jericho. Uh, who did they just sign? The Rainmaker,
I don't know that is.
Okada. That's Okada.
Yeah.
He's Japanese. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's literally, he was the best. Like, think about Shinsuke. How popular Shinsuke was. That was Shinsuke's rival, was Okada.
Oh, Kazuichi Okada, is that his name?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Kazuchika Okada. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's the best. Like, him and Shinsuke are neck and neck as being the best in Japan, and they've done nothing so far but make him Cody. He's Japanese Cody Rhodes.
That's all it is.
He's Japanese Cody Rhodes right now. Heel Cody, and dude, they're just not good at taking care of their talent. They're just not. There's all this money that's being thrown around because Khan's rich and Daddy Khan's richer, and they own the Jaguars, and they have their own stadium. They have their own amphitheater where they put on shows. Daily's Place didn't cost them a dime. They own Daily's Place. They don't have to pay any in arena fees, so they can just go back to Jacksonville. And it's kind of like when they had the NWA studio shows. You remember those?
Yeah, exactly.
How,
Yep.
like, there's only maybe 200 people in here, but this feels like a much bigger deal because it's on television.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. Like, go back and watch those old Ric Flair and NWA promos. There's maybe 200 people in there.
Did you watch the Iron Claw movie?
I did.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the best movies I've seen. Like honestly, like I mean it was.
Yeah, and to be honest, it wasn't that inaccurate.
It really no, it wasn't, and I didn't know because the way that they presented it, it made it feel like those promos, like you said, the Ric Flair promo, and other, it felt real. Like when they opened the film with Fritz Von Erich doing the Iron Claw on the guy, right? You see him grabbing his face like this, like okay. Then you see Rick, kind of, do the yeah, we're gonna have the reach of boy this, and then you see him go backstage and the tensity between David and Ric Flair, like oh my god, like I mean yeah, man, and it didn't have a big crowd. It was just like you said, it was just like a high school gym, right? And I think that was kind of the pure area of wrestling. That's Jim Cornette's dream of the regional kind of running their own kind of show. Jim Cornette
Yeah.
always keeps saying the Attitude Era just did permanent damage to the wrestling industry, but I tend to disagree. I think the
So
Attitude Era
Jim Cornette's actually reversed his take on that.
has you know.
Jim Cornette has said because the Attitude Era existed, the guys that are in charge right now, which just so happen to be Attitude Era wrestlers,
Yeah,
they've perfected how to move forward in the next generation and not lose. Because what's always happened in wrestling is they've always lost the core group of fans when they age out.
yeah.
Either the fans are too young or the fans are too old.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this is the first time in history that wrestling's been able to successfully keep everyone.
Yeah.
The old, the very young, and everybody in between. So Jim Cornette said Triple H is. I can't talk anything about Triple H right now because he's doing something that nobody's ever been able to do. He's got the friend of his homies who helped him get to where he needed to be when he was there, and you can't fault him for anything that he's doing right now because it all works. Now, if it ever doesn't work, then we'll have another conversation. But as right now, Triple H is kind of that guy.
Absolutely is.
Like the Attitude Era was probably the thing that made everyone weary about the future of wrestling. But if you think about it, without the Attitude Era, I don't even know if people would be watching wrestling at all.
Oh, absolutely not. No one would watch wrestling. Like I want to say, like for my youth, your youth, right? Our youth collectively. I mean, you turn on the show in 1998, you see Stone Cold Steve Austin flipping off Mike Tyson, and then you see Mike Tyson shoving Austin. I mean, you're not gonna watch that. I mean, dude, like that's that's you know what I mean? Like that's I don't see how wrestling could ever come into its own without the attitude era. I don't see how anything we see today
it wouldn't
it would never have been as big as it is. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. So, but yeah, anyways, yeah, I'm hyped for wrestling right now. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Yeah, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. I love it. That's all I gotta say. It's a great time. So, anyways, y'all, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Any final thoughts, Cortez, before we end the show?
I'm gonna say, you guys tune in to everything that's going on in wrestling right now. This is a landmark, historic era that we're in, and things are about to get even more interesting. If you guys thought that WrestleMania was the culmination of what this new era is going to be, they're just getting started.
100%.
They're just getting started, and I think that yeah, that's my final thoughts on all that. They're just getting started.
Just getting started, baby. All right, y'all. Thank you all for tuning in. Follow us at DDOG Podcast on Twitter. Currently taking hiatus from Instagram, but you can follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, I believe the Spades and Gals Pocket Cast as well. Wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you all for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see y'all next week. Thank y'all.
Ali, my daughter just called, so I gotta go.